All right, Alistair, we got a closer look that we need to take at something. And of course, I'm going to go into the Wayback Machine. And I want to take you back to the halcyon days of like just a couple weeks ago. You may remember that we were talking about the fact that NVIDIA AI chips were showing up in China, even though there was a US embargo to not let them get that advanced technology. You also may remember, if you turn your Wayback Machine to January, that one of the reasons for this was because the outgoing Biden administration blocked the Chinese from being able to buy these advanced chips like NVIDIA's Haswell. Well, fast forward to today, and now companies like Microsoft are urging the current presidential administration to rescind that ban because boy, oh boy, would they like access to that growing AI market in China. Part of the reason that they are really champing at the bit to make that happen is because Chinese authorities are telling their AI researchers, yeah, don't bother going to the US. Like, they won't let us play on this stuff when we get back home. So why should we allow you to do that? And you'll be completely shocked to learn that third-party entrepreneurs are finding a way to make a fortune by reshipping shipments of restricted items to China from places like Singapore. 3 people in Singapore were just arrested, 2 Singaporean citizens and 1 Chinese citizen, charged with running an operation of the yar har har variety to get some of that equipment over there. All right, Al, that's a lot. Where do you want to start with this?
Well, how about we dig into the Singapore arrests a little bit? Seems like this particular case, so we'll just hit some detail and we'll zoom back out a little later. In this case, there were servers that were manufactured by Dell and Supermicro that may not, probably did, contain NVIDIA chips, and that were supposed to be being delivered to Malaysia, but ended up probably in mainland China or on their way to mainland China. Interesting that both Dell has responded that they are very careful about making sure they comply with sanctions, and Malaysia is not a sanctioned country, so they were absolutely entitled to ship these servers with these GPUs in them. The other 2 parties, NVIDIA and Supermicro, haven't made any particular statements about this yet, but I'd expect them to have the same sort of idea. They were in good faith shipping hardware to a location that is absolutely valid to receive that hardware. The thought, though, then, is what percentage of the servers that are being bought by these countries that are possibly being used as a sort of transshipment location, what percentage of the servers sold to them actually are used in their locations? It's an interesting thing to start considering, whether the purchases by these countries or by people within these countries. Now, let's be clear. I'm not claiming that anybody involved in the governments of these countries is doing anything wrong here. I believe it's far more likely to be going under the radar in these places. But we start looking in the same way that you look to find an illegal grow operation. It's not yet legal here in New Zealand to grow your own cannabis. Well, you look for excessive power consumption and excessive water consumption as an indicator of an illegal grow operation. Well, excess purchasing of high-end GPUs in a country that maybe isn't actually showing any signs that they're using those GPUs might be a symptom of this transship. And this is one of the challenges with all of the restrictions, right? Is that you restrict a particular country, and then maybe there's other countries that have intermediate relationships. Conversations around this sort of shipments into China coming through from places like Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, places that are physically very close to China and where the Chinese influence is very strong. So yeah, it's not overly surprising that the sort of ship into one country, move into another is happening for the chips. We're more used to this being the black market for arms. Tom, looking at it from the US perspective, which of course I don't completely have, was this move by Biden to restrict chips something that was very popular? Is it something that the current administration is expected to continue?
I really wish I had a good answer for you because there is a very strange disconnect here. At least the last two presidential administrations, because let's remember that the current president was also the president from 2016 to 2020, have been very antagonistic toward China. It's been very interesting because I don't, as of the recording of this episode, the U.S. just announced a rise in tariffs on things from China. And of course, we know that the way global supply chains work, we're very dependent on getting things from China. But it's funny that this was announced like literally with a week to go before the end of the session of the previous presidential administration. So I guess the question is the current president going to come in and lift the ban to reverse course that something his predecessor had done, which means that China will be able to get access to these markets? Or will he continue the ban in place as is because he has such a distaste for Chinese competition? And if you look up anything about anything he's said over the last 12 years, he's been pretty pointed in his comments about China. So I don't know what the ultimate goal here is. And I'm going to take it one step further because quite honestly, I don't know what Microsoft's ultimate goal is here. I know what NVIDIA's is they want to sell as much as they can to anybody who will buy it. But I got to remind a couple of those companies that you don't just get to do business in China. You have to play by their rules. And remember that one of their rules is that you actually have to sell through a Chinese subsidiary that is 51% owned by a Chinese company. And to illustrate this point, I'd like to make this the very first episode of Gestalt IT Rundown Karaoke. Oh, I never thought the leopards would eat my face. Because as soon as Microsoft gets access to sell AI into China, that company that owns 51% of the company that's selling it in China is going to have access to everything that you have access to. And then they're going to reverse engineer it. And then they're going to appropriate it. And then they're going to kick you out of the country a couple of years later. And yeah, you will have made a lot of money during those 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, however many years it is. And then a suspiciously similar copycat is going to show up and you will never get access to that market again. Now, what's the right answer here? Well, unfortunately, I slept through international politics, and my political science course was all about Watergate. Boy, I remember those days. But like, this is a big, massive problem for U.S. companies because we have been slowly restricting all of the pieces to make semiconductors from China. I mean, most of the lithography machines come out of the Netherlands, and those machines can't get anywhere near mainland China right now. And we've heard rumblings that, there's still that situation between China and their rebel province of Taiwan, which could erupt into some other things. And as I was explaining to a friend of mine the other day, the first thing that happens if there's an invasion of Taiwan is TSMC goes boom. Like they have already said, they will raise those factories to the ground to prevent them from falling into what they consider to be enemy hands. So this could drag out a little further. And I mean, I hate to use the term because it sounds so wrong, but NVIDIA really is an arms dealer here. It's just they're not selling guns or missiles or helicopters like in Lord of War, great Nicolas Cage film. They're selling GPUs and AI accelerators. So, I mean, do you think that the Chinese are just going to accept the fact that they can't get a hold of these things? Or are they going to continue to do what they've evidently been doing all this time?
I think really importantly, we know that the Chinese view of how the world works is a long game. It's, as you say, a few years of Western companies making high profits is a justifiable sacrifice to a long game of success in China and Chinese interests. So we will see this carry on for quite some time. This won't end rapidly. So yeah, I think this is a watch the space and see what's going on. The innovation in China we saw with DeepSeek carries on of let's keep making some noise about these restrictions aren't effective against us.